Home gardens have come a long way from a neat mowed yard with selected plantings. Going natural and native is an increasing trend, and at a local church they've done that with prairie plantings. We'll take you there next on Great Gardening.
We're like producing a serious amount of food.
We hope to be able to provide food for the community.
I love sharing the garden with others.
You can do a lot of fun things with broccoli.
All of our students here are involved in gardening.
It has a sign on the door that says My Happy Place, and it really is.
Hello and welcome to Great Gardening. I'm Pamela Fish, coming to you from home as we isolate to stay safe during COVID-19. Our experts are here, joining us from home as well. They're educator and horticulturist Bob Olin and garden professional and greenhouse owner Deb Burns Erickson. Welcome, you guys.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good afternoon.
Oh,
You know, things are sure greening up out there now, aren't they, Bob?
Oh, very dramatically. We had that nice little bit of rain that came through, and lawns in particular look really strong. So I think we've got good soil moisture. It's greening up very quickly.
Deb, greenhouses are open, but really a different situation out there. How's it going with the social distancing and all the restrictions you need to consider?
right. A lot of people are excited and they're getting into the greenhouses. What we're finding is a lot of people want to come in, they want to do their shopping relatively quickly, get it on their cart and get out. It is really pretty quick experience. And so that's keeping it enough room for people. They're respecting each other. It was really a good flow for people, and we're adjusting with having portable apps so we can go to people if they look frightened. I mean, there is some of that. But most people are getting in, getting their stuff, and just happy to be out for a moment and get some green going.
Right. It's just so encouraging to be able to, see new plants and flowers and bring them to your home, really. And we sure hope folks can and do patronize their local garden businesses because, boy, they need it now more than ever. Again, we are not taking calls during the program this week, but please send your questions via email to ask@wdse.org. You'll find the email address at the bottom of the screen. All right, signs of the season. We talked a little bit about how green it is out there. Bob, some other things. People are looking to plant trees right now, and apple trees are some of the favorites to plant at this time.
Certainly, we had that heavy snow cover, and we've had so many questions from people about vole damage in particular, these field mice that run right underneath the snow and unfortunately can girdle a new tree. So I think a lot of new trees are going to go in the ground. And number one, make sure you get the hardiest tree, at least begin with. So we've got some good varieties that go back a long, long ways there. Harrelson, Harrow Red, you're not going to go wrong with. Certainly, people want to plant Honeycrisp. Now, that's a zone 4. So I would say if you're near the lake or if you're on the Wisconsin side, I think it's very appropriate. If you're north of Cotton, you're going to have a good protected location. Then we've got any other number of them that are going to do well for folks. Sweet 60, good and hardy, and then good protection systems, protect from deer and protect that main stem from any of the field mice or rabbits. And there we like to use a cylinder. We use drain tile with a gap, and we'll show you a picture of that. But think about hardiness, think about protection.
Deb, do you guys sell a lot of trees? People interested in trees?
Yeah, every spring people seem to get a few more fruits going, to be a little bit more self-sufficient. And of course, this year people are really looking into that. Yeah, we always have the Harrelson and the Harrow Red, the Sweet 16 and Zestar and things, that are hardy because people, if they have success with the tree, then they're going to do more and they're going to get a reward from it. So that's great.
Right, okay. Well, a lot of gardeners are choosing to let yards and gardens go more natural with native plantings. And at a church in Duluth, the natives they planted come from the prairie. And they were planted to serve as a garden space with special meaning.
I'm Holly Bowen Bailey, and this is my partner and husband, Doug Bowen Bailey. We're here at Peace Church, United Church of Christ in Duluth on 11th Avenue East and 11th Street.
And we're sitting in the middle of our memorial prairie garden. It's been an important place for us, an important place for lots of people in our community.
So for me, Prairie is really connected to my growing up identity.
We had the unfortunate experience of some pregnancy losses, and at that point, we wanted to do something different than just have a memorial service. So I was on the church council at the time and brought the idea of having kind of a small patch of the hillside, which was all grass at that time, turned into a memorial prairie garden. Holly's dad, she had grown up on the prairie.
And I know that Prairie we're kind of on the edge of it here in Duluth. It's more of a northern North Woods kind of place, but you can still see natural prairie grass on your drive down to Hinckley. And
this is purple prairie clover right here, golden oxeye. The grass is big blue stem. And I think that's one of the things about Prairie too, is to not just highlight the flowers, but the grasses are really such an integral part of them. Wild bergamot, Monarda fistulosa. That's a really good example. One thing we do every year or two is burn it. Which is not something that you can just do. You have to get a permit from the fire department. It often happens kind of around Easter time. So there have been some times where it's like we burn kind of during Lent and it's just all laid ashes to black. And by the time it comes to Easter, then you start to see those green shoots coming up, and it's that, fresh first greens that are really lovely. So I think for us, it kind of has a spiritual meaning too in terms of resurrection.
I'm just sitting here by the purple prairie clover. It makes my heart kind of happy to have it right here. We live 6 blocks away from this church, and to be able to come to church, walk by, and feel like, oh, this is a really kind of sacred spot.
It's really cool, that garden there. If you get a chance, check it out on the hillside in Peace Church. And again, no mowing there, but as they admitted, those are prairie plantings, which don't always do well in this neck of the woods, but you can always plant natives, right, Bob?
Absolutely. This is really the northern boreal forest that we're in, and as opposed to prairie, but plant any number of materials and see what survives. And then you can go back and you can just take a little look around. We've got so many native materials, asters and so forth. They're typically not quite as showy as some of the cultivated varieties, but Pam, we're seeing kind of an integration, what we'll call kind of the new perennial movement, where we're planting natives, and that's great for our pollinators. And then we're planting a lot of the real colorful cultivars. So we're kind of integrating the two to give us the best of both worlds, called the new perennial movement.
Well, we have some questions coming in. Actually, they came in via email earlier. From Linda, she says, even though we plant early, our spinach and radishes always bolt. Are there some varieties that are not prone to bolting, or is there something else we should consider?
Well, Pam, I've experienced exactly the same situation. True spinach are cool season crops. They can substitute a New Zealand spinach, or they can substitute Swiss chard, which don't have the issues with warmer temperatures. Here's another thought: start early. They love it cool, but they're frost sensitive. So you have to be prepared to cover them if temperatures are approaching freezing. So you could plant anytime now, but you're going to have to protect them. Then they will get a crop before they bolt.
All right. Deb, Jeanette's asking about planting poppy seeds and caring for those plants.
Okay, so just starting them, and again, it's a good medium, it's warm temperatures, and depending on the poppy, they could be a day length sensitive, so just keep that in mind, and long days might be helpful with that one. You'd have to research it a little bit, depending on the variety, but warm and sunny and a nice moist medium to get them started. And then with a controlled environment, you'll have much more success than direct seeding them. So I would definitely do it more controlled in containers.
Okay. I know those spread like crazy once they self-seed, right?
They do. Right, so you could just take the pods before they shatter. I mean, they're beautiful to take the pods and dry them. And then you could start some for your friends and, give away some poppies too.
Okay. Jerry in Nashwauk says my raspberry patch of 20 years is not reestablishing new growth and some rows are getting bare. Is it time to change the crop or add new plants? Bob?
Oh, I'd definitely start to renovate that particular raspberry patch. 20 years is a good lifespan for raspberries. It's virus that ultimately kills the plants. So you might want to take them out, dig them out, and then plant an alternate crop for a year. You want all that root system, which is filled with the virus, to be eliminated. So plant an alternate crop for one season, and then you can come back and again and reestablish new, what we call virus indexed raspberries. So you want to look for that term. So you want to start with material that is virus free and then maintain it. If you can get another good 20 years, he's done quite well.
All right, great. Either of you can answer this. Bob and Francie say they're from Carlton. They're interested in buying a decent sized tumbler type compost bin. Is a single or a double chamber the best? What do you guys suggest?
Well, I looked at all kinds of mechanisms, and my favorite situation is just a great big pile. The bigger, the better. So they self-insulate from the cold. If they self-insulate from the cold, you can maintain that composting process through the winter months. I like something 4 or 5 feet on a side. So the bigger, the better. And people might want to reconsider buying too small of a tumbler. A lot of mechanisms out there, but many of them will compost during the growing season, but not much longer. So bigger is better.
All right. Deb, anything to add?
Absolutely. I was hoping Bob was going to say that because that's exactly what we do. And you really get a good amount, if you have the space for it, obviously. But you really get a good return on your time and your effort and some really nice soil.
Okay. Deb, you had a question from a customer about zucchini. Can you let us know what that was about?
I did. Yesterday at the greenhouse, I had a gal who gets her zucchini from us, and she said she didn't get many zucchini last year. And I said, wow, that is rare. We usually don't hear that. But she explained a bit more. She had lots of flowers early and then a little bit of fruiting late. And then I looked into it and found out that they do bloom early male and then more female later, and then they cross-pollinate. And so I said, oh, well, that's why it happened. So then I phoned a friend. I called Bob. And I asked Bob what to do, and Bob had a great solution for it.
Yeah, we thought, this is what's considered a monoecious plant. You have both male flowers and female flowers on the same plant. And the males have fallen off when the females are present. So she took say she had a 4-pack, she planted 2 plants and held the other 2 back in the pack, keep them wet, or keep them moist, and then plant those maybe a week or 10 days later. So when they're kicking out the male flowers, the previous planting has the female flowers, and she should get good pollination that way. So there may be a technique for her.
Well, interesting. I did hear from a couple people last season too who weren't getting much zucchini, which is so rare. Usually you're, throwing it away.
With all of these plants, if you can kind of stagger your planting a little bit, and even varieties, if you were to cross up a couple of different varieties, the whole idea is we've got to get a lot of pollen out there when the female flowers are in bloom.
If you drive a busy stretch of Arrowhead Road near UMD, you've likely seen this next garden. Homeowners put in features with curbside appeal that also relieve traffic noise.
Hi, I'm Mary Medill, my grandson Paxton, and I'd like to welcome you to our Kenwood Garden. Well, I've been gardening forever. My mom and dad were avid gardeners, and so I've kind of caught the bug, and I retired 10 years ago, and we redid all of our gardens at that time because the deer had pretty much decimated everything that was here. There's a curly onion in that flower bed. They don't eat that. I also have oregano and lemon thyme, lavender. I've planted some other things that they don't like. This is all UMD's property behind us and off to the west of us. So this kind of demarks the edge of the yards. So about a quarter of a block through the woods, I hook into the Bagley Nature Trail. Ferns have just come in the last few years, and the deer don't like them. They don't walk through them and they don't eat them. Lamium is what that silvery looking leafed plant is, and the deer don't like that. I used to have some plants down in there, and then once the ferns started spreading, I just let it go natural with the ferns. Irish moss maybe, a lighter green and a darker green, and then just different kinds of sedum, and they do really well. They're kind of drought tolerant too, so if you're not really good about watering, they'll last. If a plant's not doing well, I'll dig it up, I'll put something else in its place, and I'll put it in the hospital garden. And I supplement the soil in that garden so it's a little bit richer than the rest of it, and I'll give it a year. If it comes back and looks good, then it will get replanted out in the garden. If it doesn't, it goes to the compost pile. This year I kind of went with an orange and yellow theme. Usually I'll try and pick out a color scheme and stick with that around most of the yard. I like the moneywort because I like that limey green color. And I like the coral bells because they come in so many different colors. Lime green, maroon, kind of a peachy color, all different colors. So I kind of go for different colors and textures. That's actually a pot, you know, that a plant came in, and I just cut it so that it's only about this deep, so that it goes down and it just keeps them from spreading all over everywhere. Kind of keeps them more concentrated in one area. Coreopsis, lots of yellow, little yellow flowers, yeah, and that comes back really well. And it's very airy looking, kind of ferny looking. And the bleeding heart, those are dwarf goat's beard. But most of these plants, and that's what's nice about them, you don't have to do a lot of pruning. I pick up things at art fairs here and there. But I did want it mounded, and we wanted some type of a break from the traffic. So that's kind of why we put the Tannenbaum in there, not realizing it was going to get that big. Is the weeping tamarack, and that we've trained to go back and forth several times. And in the winter, it's got a lot of interest to it because you can see the trunk snakes back and forth. It's almost an S shape.
Yeah, we want to thank Mary for sharing her garden with us. That was a fun tour to be on. So now back to more questions. And as is often the case, they come with a picture. And this one is from Barb in Carlton, who has this plant that was overgrowing the pot. She cut it back, put the stalks into water, where she says she thinks they're starting to root. Doesn't know what the plant is, but Deb, that's a pretty familiar one to you. Can you tell us a little bit more about it?
Oh, sure. Sansevieria or snake plant or mother-in-law tongue, because it's, you know, sharp. Anyway, and it, yeah, it's a relatively slow grower, but it lasts forever, a long time. But my concern with her rooting, a lot of times the water roots that they'll put on are not the same as the soil root. So I would get it into a nice light soil mixture to get it rooting in, get it down low enough so it stays in and doesn't move much, because that can be an issue and it wiggles and you lose the soil roots. But they should root, and then she'll have many more.
All right, thanks, Deb. Here's another question from Roger in Gilbert. How do I get rid of purslane? It's taking over my garden.
Well, purslane is it's a very shallow-rooted, very common garden weed, and it seeds very dramatically. You know, just shallow cultivation. It comes out very easily. Just pull it out. That's the easiest thing. There are some pre-emerge herbicides that are labeled for garden use, but I think for the most part, shallow cultivation, and you can take it out pretty quickly. But it'll be there just about every year because it seeds prolifically.
Okay. Joan has a 1.5 foot tall spruce tree that needs to be removed from a perennial garden and planted out in the yard. When's a good time to do that?
Oh, right now. I think 1.5 feet like that, it'll transplant very readily. The sooner the better. As a matter of fact, for anyone wants to move trees, shrubs, woody, perennials of any type, early May is just ideal.
Okay. Deb, you're probably familiar with Pasqueflower. So Jean has one that's been there for 4 years, but found a colony of ants on it, and on and around the plant. Sprays them with insecticidal soap, but is wondering about digging up the Pasqueflower and how to deal with this ongoing issue.
Right, I would definitely move it just to get it away, because I don't think the ants are going to go away unless you really treat them, you know. But I would move it just so you don't have to deal with that, and then you could treat, you know, with one of the labeled pesticides, the anthill. But again, depending on her location and you know where she's at and where that ant hill, I presume it's near an anthill or it's becoming one. But I would get it up, get as much of the soil away from the roots, you know, get any, you know, bits of what could be ant carrying, and move it to a new location. And then she should, you know, be done with that issue.
We're seeing new spring blooms along with some favorites from last summer in this week's Grow and Show.
A few warm, sunny days brought up the naturalized daffodils in the art of Tom Blumenberg of Hayward. Tom's neighborhood friend Abby Kloss took the pictures. Abby is preparing to start her own garden nearby. Here's a look at the peony shoots making their way up from the ground as well. Tana Rosen grew a bright sunny yellow flower last summer and was pleased with how the mallow grew in her garden. And Eleanor Dreyer stands among the hollyhocks that pleased and surprised her by growing to 14 feet tall and showing up in 3 different colors when she thought she only planted 1. In addition, Eleanor's clematis Josephine put on a nice show. If you have showy flowers or garden blooms too pretty not to share, send them to greatgardening@wdse.org and let us show what you grow.
Thanks again for sending in those pictures, and keep them coming. All right, guys, we have a few more questions we're going to try and get to. Angie from Duluth has a beautiful lily garden. After removing the fall, she sees it's covered with thick moss. Will the lilies still come up, or does the moss need to be removed?
Well, I think the moss is an indication that there's a lot of moisture there, because moss, again, is not a vascular plant. So to stay alive, it has to be able to absorb all that moisture right through the cell tissue. So there's a lot of moisture. I would pull it off, and I'd be a little bit concerned that maybe even some of those roots may be struggling with the water. So better drainage, fuller sun, pull the moss off, and try to change the environment just a little bit.
Okay. Deb, do you have cats?
Yes.
Okay. Mary in Mountain Iron is looking for the best way to keep neighborhood cats out of the flower garden, and is wondering if there's a spray to keep them from using it as a litter box, or is there a plant that maybe they will stay away from?
Or they could attract them with and have them in an area that they can use as a litter box. I don't know. Our cats are seem to be attracted to everything. But we have a lot, and we only have 2 cats. But I mean, you could put Nepeta or a catmint or catnip in an area that they would be attracted to, and maybe that would keep them away from your other prized flowers. But I don't know. Bob, do you have a solution?
Well, a couple thoughts come to mind, and I've had 1 cat in my life, and I've been a dog person ever since. But first off, you really don't want them using your garden as a litter box, because there are some bacteria that are carried in that feces that are detrimental. So she definitely wants to keep them under control. There are a number of commercial products, Deb, I think they're all kind of citrus based, or they've got kind of a citrusy smell that I think that maybe cats don't like. And maybe the other thing would be to talk with the neighbors, if you can politely, and indicate they're looking for that litter box. So if they can't find it, they're coming into your garden, and anything that's a little crusty or heavier, they don't like. So if you've got a real light garden soil, that's probably why they're making use of that. So maybe trying to find a better area. I like your catmint idea. Try to share some of that with the neighbors maybe so that it keeps them out of the garden. But I definitely would, you do not want them using your garden as a litter box, that's for certain. And cat and all animal feces should not be in the compost pile either. So we want to be quite careful about all those things. There is a potential for disease there.
So please go to our website for more great gardening information and to watch past episodes. And we hope that you follow us on Instagram at Great Gardening WDSC. Well, that's it for this week. Deb, Bob, thank you so much for great garden assistance and guidance. We really appreciate it. We hope you guys have a really great week, and we hope there's a lot of gardening going on across the Northland this week until we meet again. From all of us here at Great Gardening, stay well and enjoy the garden.
Funding for Great Gardening is brought to you by the Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund and the citizens of Minnesota.